This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. And upon request to the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with disabilities to be able to participate in this meeting. Hope, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Albright.
Here.
Mr. Arnold. Bruderly.
Here.
Mrs. Greatorex. Here. Ms. Kangas. Here. Mr. Lundy.
Here.
Mrs. Zoera.
Here.
Ms. Beneteau. Here. Mr. Watson.
Here.
Thank you. We have some meeting minutes that were included in our packet.
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the attached meeting minutes from October 21, 2024 as presented. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have a approval of our agenda. The board policy provides that the superintendent of schools shall prepare an agenda for all board meetings as directed by the president of the Board of Education.
I move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as presented.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and our first order of operation is the school presentation and the bond steering committee.
We have several members, community members and staff that were part of the bond steering committee that met for starting in August. TMP representatives, Granger construction representatives, and then community volunteer extraordinaire, Jerry. Who are here to present their findings from their study. We have three presenters, Jody Neestad, Kelly Parachek, and Brad Cutter. We're gonna run you through a presentation. So I forget who's first. We have time on the agenda to talk through it.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Kelly Parachek. I teach fifth grade here in the district at Creekside. I also live in the district and have raised two girls that have graduated from school. Hi there, I'm Jody Neestad. Thanks for having us here tonight. We moved into the Dexter School District about 21 years ago. My husband and I have three boys. They all started kindergarten at Cornerstone and graduated from Dexter High School. Been volunteering within the district for many, many years in a variety of ways. Classroom helper when the kids were young, and we're recently on the athletic booster club of Dexter board, helping coach high school tennis. And again, thanks so much for having us here today.
Yes, I don't have that much. But I have a daughter, she's in second grade at the elementary. I'm a structural engineer, I have practiced in Ann Arbor. So I've worked on bond steering committees, typically on the after the bond proposal side at districts like Chelsea and Saline. So it's interesting to be on this side of the fence.
What's your name?
Brad Cutter.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Our process began with the district sharing the charge for our committee, which simply states developing a plan for maintaining and upgrading Dexter Community Schools educational community facilities to support flexible student-centered learning environments that meet the mission and vision of our district. The committee was comprised of individuals named in this chart and in the audience. They represent not only staff, but also parents and community members. This process was divided into three main parts. Discovery, where we learned a great deal about our district, our buildings, and the vision for modern learning. Exploration is where we began to react to concepts and ideas for changes to our buildings. Then we moved those ideas in a direction that we felt supported the vision and mission of our district. Finally, the recommendation phase where we are at tonight. We held 5 key meetings. In addition, we had access to our team's Google Drive, where we were able to access and download a great deal of important information and video. These images illustrate some of our work sessions. It's great to see the continuity of attendance at each meeting and the energy generated in the room throughout our discussions. It really was a privilege to be a part of this. I wasn't quite sure I wanted to undertake that at the beginning of the school year. But it really was, we all showed up every week and we were excited to be there, which is really a cool thing about our district, that everyone wants to serve our children. Pretty cool. I'd like to take you through the process we undertook beginning with the discovery. During the discovery phase, we covered many topics, including our district overview and financials, the facility condition assessment, program assessment, and understanding of what modern learning environments look like. All of this information gave us a very solid understanding and foundation to help us in our decision. Our district gave us a thorough understanding of the goals and vision of the district, as well as financials, including the topics that you see here. This graph depicts the enrollment trends for our district. An important part of our understanding was to connect our efforts with the vision and direction of our district. Most importantly, the fourth point of these strategic initiatives supports enhancing learning environments by providing educational experiences within and beyond the classroom. The statistics for every building owned by the district were shared along with some fun facts about the building, our buildings and sites. That's pretty interesting. The district's financial consultant presented details about how school construction programs are financed through bonds, and also provided an example of how multi-series bonds are executed. We then learned about the scope of infrastructure needs across all of our district buildings. The team that investigated these needs included architects, engineers, construction professionals, site planners, and technology designers. They visited 19 different buildings and compiled data on roofing, electrical, mechanical, building systems, and conditions. So basically, the entire building and site for facilities owned by our district. The information was separated into 4 end of useful life categories, including immediate needs, 1 to 5 year, 6 to 10 year, and 11 to 15 year needs. The entire detailed report was prepared and shared with committee members on Google Drive. Both narrative and graphic were used to capture the summary of the findings. A priority score of red indicates items that are critical to implement due to past useful life, while a score priority of orange means the district can create a 1 to 5 year plan to fund and implement these projects. Priority yellow allows the district to track these items and address within 6 to 10 years, and green items are at least 11 to 15 years out from needing to be addressed. Here is a compilation of estimated infrastructure costs by building across the district. These costs are immediate to 15 years out. Another important aspect of evaluating our schools included the program assessment. This is where the professional team looked at the district's curricular vision and goals and the spaces that house our programs to see if upgrades are necessary to allow programs to flourish instead of impeding activity. This effort began with educational planning team meetings with district leaders to understand curricular goals and vision. These goals and vision would then become the framework for assessing the performance of spaces and buildings. Process started out with an aligned learning workshop with key administrative leaders of the district to lay out the vision and goals for education in our district. Meetings with principals and directors took place to get more granular with specific program elements. This was then followed by walkthroughs of each school and discussions with building leaders to develop a list of programmatic needs across each building. Detailed charts and narrative accompanied these simplified wheels to indicate areas that were working, shown in green, areas that were somewhat meeting our needs in yellow, and areas that supported teaching and learning in orange. A full report was developed and shared on the Google Drive.
These 6 statements summarize some of the overarching programmatic needs and goals across all grade levels. After taking away a great deal of discovery information, we headed into the interactive phase of our meetings. In our first exercise, we were asked to rank a list of guiding principles. Guiding principles are broad goals that guide the development of potential upgrades to our schools and ultimately are the basis for outlining the bond program's growth. This was pretty cool. We did the exercise as individuals first, then shared our information as tables. The first 6 priorities ranked exactly the same across both efforts, with support for functionality of our buildings, security and equity being important, and collaboration space and career focus following those. The professional team used these goals as they embarked on developing concepts for meeting our needs with a focus on priority goals developed by our committee. At the conclusion of our very first meeting, we were asked a final question. It was our exit ticket exercise. The question was, use one word or phrase to describe how you would like to define Dexter Community Schools in the future. This word cloud certainly emphasizes the welcoming and innovative direction that we hope our district continues to. At this point, the professional team took all that was learned throughout the facilities and program assessment, the district overview, and our ranking of the guiding principles, and began to conceptualize how we could approach meeting the needs of our district. As exploration began, the professional team shared conceptual direction with us, articulating how the ideas connected back to the guiding principles and needs identified in discovery. The comprehensive idea shown in these 3 conceptual directions was accompanied by a detailed description of the proposed upgrades at each building and site. Program upgrades were identified on each plan and refined as feedback was analyzed. And I will say they were very good at listening to our feedback and coming back with revised concepts. Some of the exercises included objective evaluation as our tables graded the concepts against the guiding principles. We were also given the opportunity to elaborate on the pros and cons and concerns regarding these concepts. As refinements were made throughout the process, the professional team continued to use the guiding principles to bring concepts in close alignment with the visions and goals of the district and the priorities that were established at the onset of the process by our committee. Additionally, once the exact budget goals were identified by the financial consultant, we worked within those parameters to create the most optimum combination of program scope that met our original guiding principles. The next step was to see what our tolerance was for the bond program value. It was tested, and basically we were very quick to learn that everyone's takeaway was really that the millage needed to remain unchanged. If the millage remained unchanged, the dollar amount was somewhat irrelevant. At meeting number 5, our last meeting, we were presented with additional statistics to guide our thinking. First, we reviewed election statistics, including the history of successful campaigns in Dexter when a 0 increase proposals were presented. And we looked at the state passage rates that indicated there was a 34% increase in passage for the proposals that maintain the millage rate at the current levels. If I can figure out how to go to an additional slide that shows athletic usage, just hit the button going over. All right. Oh, there we go. We received information regarding the high use of our indoor athletic and multi-purpose spaces. They presented this to us, and it really pointed to a very high need for additional indoor space to serve both our student athletes as well as our community members. Next, in our last meeting, we had a very fun exercise. We used some Legos. They made some refinements to the previous concepts. They were presented to us, and then we moved into our build our own program.
We were asked to formulate a bond program within a specific set budget of $220 million. After a lot of discussion and thought, each table went through and we shared our Lego builds with our group. The professional team was obviously looking for commonalities of thinking and any differentiators. As a second step in this exercise, we then were challenged. They gave us some extra money and we got to prioritize a second time what we thought the needs would be. Certainly the idea of compromise, equity, and choices was a part of formulating consensus and creating the most optimum solution. Very interestingly, after reviewing all of the other added or the changed selections, the new recommendation scope was reviewed on a large board they did here for us. And it was very apparent that the table builds that we did were all headed in the same general direction. And that meeting a consensus on this final recommendation to the board was achievable. As this chart illustrates, which hopefully you have in front of you on a paper and don't have to see all that, the majority selections were easy to spot in virtually all of the categories, and we aligned well. A couple of the selections were split 50-50. Because the majority selections were equal to approximately 234 million, district leadership instructed the professional team to add the two 50% support items to the final program scope at a slightly decreased value. And this got us to the total of just under the $240 million mark. Given that direction, this summarizes the final selections and the estimate for those items. It equates to just under 240 million. And now Brad's going to give you our final recommendation.
Just, you know, if I flip it through too fast on this. So as you can see here, over 325 hours invested by the committee members, which is a drop in the bucket compared with the designers, construction professionals, and school administrators that spent on this. 5 meeting minutes, like we were showing earlier, and a lot of us even took a tour of 3 of the somewhat higher maintenance buildings, which would be Wiley, Creekside, and hey, this one.
I'm like, where else?
Yeah. Yeah, so like Jody was mentioning, 240 million is the number. That is given this 0 increase. So like she was showing it, the 0% increase has about a 90% pass rate among voters. So, I mean, not just that, but it allows us to address our current facility concerns. It still gives us the opportunity to do new and meaningful projects in line with projects that we're seeing in other nearby districts. Here. So I'll just kind of go through the list. Things we're recommending for critical infrastructure at all the district buildings, collaboration space, restroom upgrades at all schools, playground upgrades, outdoor learning spaces at all schools. So Mill Creek, we're proposing to become a 5th and 6th grade building to move all of our young learners into a consolidated campus on one side of Baker Road, along with major enhancements of Wiley, and then on the other side of Baker Road, we're proposing pretty major renovations to the existing Creekside structure, which would then become a new 7th grade. Also with that, we have a new indoor athletic and community space and outdoor athletic support building upgrades of that's at stadium. Upgrades to the theater, arts and music spaces, upgrades to the high school, including a new secure front entry, new fitness space, new CTE space, and redesigning science pods and second and third floor areas to open up our collaboration space. Also, there's going to be some technology upgrades and of course, businesses. So I'm going to run through the building by building again. Pretty slow down. Here's the deck, Anchor and Beacon. So the lighter or the yellow areas are light, refresh, new finishes, flooring, ceilings, stuff like that. Purple is a little bit, more involved, heavier remodel spaces. So specifically at the deck, they're, reimagining the media center for the anchor side, which is the beacon side. And looking to remodel both administration. There was a lot of talk about a new singular focal entry. Myself personally like keeping it as separate, because it gives you future flexibility if you wanted to consolidate, say, 5 kindergarten on one side versus second on the other. Because with this is new playground, so you could have a playground with that's more geared towards specifically for that age group than playground versus second. So here's the Wiley School. Again, yellow finishes, a little more purple on here for some heavier remodel. When we walked through the buildings, this is the one that could use the heavier remodel from my opinion. So there's a new 5-story addition, or a new 5 classroom, yeah. And there goes 240. Yeah, 5 classroom addition in red, which will help phasing. They could move the kids into the red zone while they purple zones. Yeah, but some of the purple zones, I know it's a lot of bathrooms, need some work in here. Media center. Yeah, it's a lot of collaboration spaces too. Yeah, just really want to open this building. Mill Creek, which is going to become the new 5th and 6th grade building. Again, yellow, finished upgrades and purple zones. Again, media center. And this building, they really want to focus on getting a new, nicer front entry. My daughter's playing basketball, one of the different gyms, we had a hard time finding which the front door wasn't quite huge. This one in the high school. Again, collaboration space, strength conditioning space. You probably will need really curved.
What was that? We probably won't need the strength and conditioning with the 5th and 6th, 7, 8 movement.
Oh,
Okay. Did notice it the 17 times.
okay, so at Creekside, the old high school, there was some talks early on about maintaining legacy portions of the school. And, a lot of community members might not like to come by and see the old high school get ripped down and completely redone. So there was some sensitivity to those areas, made the gym, cafeteria. But again, this is one of the higher maintenance buildings, one of the more higher maintenance buildings, high dollar upkeep. So we had to, the cost being the same to kind of renovate and build new, cost being similar, you kind of like to do something new. So what's shown here is a 2-story classroom wing with, to jump to that existing building, kind of move it out. And also at the kind of the bottom here, partial renovation for new career technical education spaces.
In this 2-story building that have a new theater in it.
Oh,
Appropriately sized for a middle school, smaller theater, not as big as the CPA, but appropriate for the.
So for the high school, at the first floor, again, yellow finishes, purple's a little more. Forgive me, my daughter's only in 2nd grade, so I don't know exactly what's on in these classrooms just yet, but I know that there's some attention needs to be paid to science rooms. And either on this floor or the upper floors, these pods, they really put it up and get some more open collaboration space. Right now, I think there's a lot of corridors and lockers. So just our In red there on the top, you can see addition for seating space. Second floor. This is where the focal entry point comes in. It would be a nice, secure vestibule, some office additions, so they can keep a good eye on what's coming in and out of the building. And much needed fitness space also, which is nicely positioned right next to the gym. And then on the third floor, you have pods, opening up for some higher vibration. So aside from the buildings, there's also some other initiatives. I went through the list, technology upgrades and bus purchases from the previous list. Furniture, musical instruments, upgrades at Jenkins. Site enhancements, which I think is specifically for connecting the road through here to make traffic better. And infrastructure upgrades and other communities. Including the train station. So I think we saw this chart before, kind of showing sort of price list. Thought we could get with a 0 increase, $243. Here's the chart showing how to achieve these funds again to the 0 millage increase. Yeah, that's, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank our presenters today, our help from TNT, Granger, and all the community members that spent all the time putting it together. Many are here. I think pretty much everybody here was part of that. Looks like. Thank you very much for all of your time and commitment to putting something together for you guys to talk about it. For putting the agenda. To respect their time. I know everybody's busy with that, put it a lot of time, if they want to go, it's okay, we can answer questions, but you have a couple. But we have a discussion, item, so we can really dig in. Your choice, Madam President.
Do people want to ask questions of the committee members? How about we do this? If people have specific questions to gain information that will help us in our discussion, let's ask like individual questions, but not discuss amongst us just for time purposes. Does that work? Does anyone have specific questions for the committee?
Yeah,
Go for it.
one of the, on all the individual groups are prioritization, which I love, by the way, that's really to do it. The third one is enhanced security. And some of these, you can easily see where they're gonna be, like, hey, you're gonna redo the front entrance, that's definitely gonna enhance security, but you have to think into it, right? But on none of the, infrastructure, like bullets, on none of these do we mention security, or how it's gonna enhance security. And I'm just thinking, when it goes out, the number one topic in the country, everywhere is security. So, and some of them I don't think you might even have it, because you're not enhancing the front entrance, which is usually the weakest one. So that's kind of my question or discussion item is, how do we, where are we doing it, and how do we show it? Because people know that's gonna be my number one question probably. You can see all the, everything else, the space, the integration, everything else I can see easily how it imagines in my brain, how it's gonna improve, learning for the kids. But, you know, an example we talked about on the lower end was, the outdoor space, the playground is a low item. We put that on as a highlight, which I'm sure Trey put on page 4, but nowhere in there do I see highlight for security. And I'm just, as a point of discussion, it's two for when it goes further. Does that make sense?
And maybe our Granger folks can hang out. When we get to discussion, talk about where that's built into the project. Right now, I can see him nodding. What's that? That's wrong. It's in there.
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the goals that we set for the district was that we would do a facilities analysis, and this is clearly much more than that. Thank you for all of your work. And find where we needed to make improvements, but also to try to make improvements in a sustainable fashion. following, sustainable building methods, et cetera. And so I'm just wondering, how that was taken into effect and where this, plan speaks to that nature. The aspect, so.
You guys got about 10 minutes to think about that.
Any other questions for committee as a whole?
I do have a whole plan. To hand to the board.
Marty and Claire, what did you got?
Glad you got it out first.
Thanks all for all your work. We really appreciate you.
Yes, this is a huge, enormous undertaking, and I'm really impressed that you guys were able to come together, and your presentation tonight was so wonderful to be able to show us, like, here's the things you looked at, here's how we came together, here's what we agreed on, here are things we took into account that were 50-50. All that really helps us tremendously. So thank you so much. Amazing. And if you need to move on with your night, we are not at all offended. If you just wanna slip on out, we totally understand.
Although the rest of it is equally exciting.
Is the thumb drive the same stuff?
Yeah, it has texture on it. It has-
Okay.
I think
It is
if you have additional stuff, the thumb drive also has like specifics we talked about with each meeting and that sort of thing. Perfect. Right, yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
All right, so that brings us to public participation. At this point, each speaker is allotted a maximum of 5 minutes for a total of approximately 30 minutes unless otherwise notified. At this point in the meeting, those interested in making a public comment will be asked to raise their hands so that we can divide time equally. We ask that each speaker say their name and their district of residence and indicate if they're speaking on behalf of an organization or agency. And no person may speak more than once on any subject during a single meeting, nor yield their time to another speaker. Please know that we don't respond to comment at the time of the meeting, but we are happy to respond to you and contact you after the meeting, and you just want to fill out a public comment form so that we can get back to you. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
Sorry, so Craig McCullough, here. I want to get up, I want to talk a little bit about the German exchange. So our Dexter German exchange just ended today, so we put our students on the trip. So every year we have students from Burghausen, Germany come. This year we had 15 students come, spend it with 15 of our Dexter students. So there were 10 at the high school, 5 students at Mill Creek they shared with. We had some amazing families this year. It was such an incredible trip. They came last Wednesday. So they got here last Wednesday night. We did, there were 2 days where they stayed right at Dexter High School. We also did a trip to Detroit, to Ann Arbor to the Big House. We went orienteering in Waterloo out in Chelsea. We did the Ford Rouge tour, Henry Ford Museum. So it's wonderful. The families at night got together. This is one of the better years I've ever seen of families going, we'll have a bonfire, who's trick or treating? So it was it's an incredible program. I hope we keep it going in the future. Going. So I just want to share a little bit. I know sometimes people hear bits and pieces of it, but it's a wonderful program. Yeah, so our students, so they just left and our students will go in June. So right now we're looking at kind of like a June 19th to like July 1 of going this summer. So,
They also went to the Chelsea game, right?
some of them were at Chelsea game. Yep, Chelsea game. And then we had a home playoff game. So everyone came to the home playoff game here as well. So I just want.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving on to administrative and board updates, starting with the superintendent.
Really brief, we have parent teacher conferences this week. And I want to wish the Board of Ed candidates that are on the ballot tomorrow, best of luck. And thank you for your willingness to step forward and serve the community and the kids. So, that's all I got. And
Perfect.
it will be-
Perfect. Board president, I just want to remind the community that we do have a board chat scheduled for before our next board meeting. So representatives from the board will be here at 6:15 to 6:45 to chat with anyone individually if anyone has concerns before the meeting. And on to our student reps.
I recently got in contact with Mrs. Sheila Wiley principal to see what's going on there. She said they started some new programs this year, specifically the PALS program. She didn't really elaborate, so I don't know exactly what it is. I assume it has something to do with friendship and PALS. But they also do a lot of work with peer-to-peer, so that's good. I know the high school's doing a lot of that and trying to connect it to other schools. So I'm glad to see that that's happening in other schools too. And then she also noted that some of the classes are going to the senior center and their students are doing a lot there. And I think that's great. And I think like once like the senior center that's near the wellness center is completely up and running, I think that'll be a great opportunity for kids to like just get more involved in the community. So I was happy to hear it. That's school-wise, I think it's kind of a transition period right now. We're ending fall sports, going into winter sports. We're ending the big drama season, calming it down a little bit. So it's a little quiet now, except maybe for football, but I think we'll ramp back up in a couple of months. And then lastly, I just say, this is the first year I've actually wanted to go into the library, so I think they actually did a pretty good job with that. My classes, I don't have a lot of opportunity to go into it, but when I walked by, I definitely think it was done very, very well. So.
Hello, everybody. I was very surprised by the full house tonight. I was like, all right, pressure's on, gotta lock in, like, here we are. Larry said it best, a lot of things are changing right now in a transformation period. We're kind of in that long November period. But you know what, still some exciting things happening. This last weekend, Dexter cross country team, both the guys and girls team went to states. That was on, yeah, it was a long weekend. I don't remember. I was on Saturday. It was really exciting to watch both teams competing at the highest level. It was great. I know the guys team got 16th in the state, which is great. And Julian Linebaugh, I want to shout him out. 23rd overall in the state, which is all state honor. So very big ups to him. That's huge. Other than that, Claire said it best. Football beat South Line East. Moving on to East Lansing. We're gonna take down all the East teams this year. We're going through all of them. Yeah, we got parent-teacher conferences this Thursday. Hoping maybe my mom can meet some of my favorite teachers. Who knows? Other than that, last week at the meeting, I brought up the advisory period. Just want to give a little update on that. So I sent an email to Ms. Hervey, assistant principal, sent that to you all. I'm sure that many of you read it, about this new idea I proposed of changing advisory period to more of a club period. It was something I thought of, that I got inspiration from a friend from another school district. And I thought it was a really cool idea. So I just wanted to share that with her and the administration, just get some collaboration. I ended up meeting with Ms. Hervey. We chopped it up, talked about my ideas and some of the other ideas she had, not only about advisory, about other things, moving forward in the year. I was really excited about that. Just a great time, just collaborating with each other. It's always nervous providing like student input, but it felt good to just like be that voice. And so I'm excited to see where advisory is going to go as it changes throughout the year and from years going on, and some other things we talked about. But yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you for those updates too. It's nice to sort of see what's happening over the progression of the year. Okay. We do not have any consent items tonight, which is rare. So moving on to action items, and back to the 21F plan approval. Under section 21F of the State School Aid Act, school districts may provide up to 15 days of virtual instruction. This is allowed if the district has developed a virtual plan, obtained approval from the Board of Education, and notified affected students and parents or legal guardians in advance. Our packet includes a virtual instruction plan, which meets these requirements. It will only be used for seniors on testing day at the high school. This plan does not represent any change to DCS practice, but formalizes the process for transparency and accountability purposes. This item was previously discussed at our October 21st, 2024 meeting and has been edited according to the discussion and consultation with the auditors. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the attached virtual learning plan dated 11/4/2024 for the 24-25 school year.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
We updated it based on the discussion at the last meeting. did clear the exact language on here with the auditors that we added the bolded sentence at the top saying it's only applicable for seniors on state testing day, et cetera. And then on the back, at the very end of the district calendar, made it very clear that the official school calendar include designated virtual learning days. These days will be used for state and district level testing. This is just for this year, and they'll change the rules for next year.
That's good.
I really appreciate you guys updating the language
Yes,
and being
I-
very clear. So thank you. These are small changes, but I think they make an enormous difference.
I was gonna say the same thing, that I think that makes it very clear that, we're not just adding random virtual learning. But there is a clear path and plan, and we're doing what the state's required of us, not just making it up on the fly.
That's why we do discussion.
Do you have any other points? Okay, as it is an action item, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Oliver.
Aye.
Mrs. Burgerly.
Aye.
Mrs. Greater.
Aye.
Ms. Kangas. Aye. Mr. Lundy. Mrs. Rivera.
Aye. Okay, thank you. And now let's move on to discussion where we have time to discuss the bond steering committee's presentation. Where would someone like to start?
I have questions.
Why don't you throw one out? Okay.
So my question is more around timing and how the work will be completed and whether it will disrupt students. And then I just want to make sure that I understand that the additional gym space is a couple of weightlifting, strength and conditioning rooms, and then the Mill Creek expansion, is that correct? I mean, not Mill Creek, Creekside expansion, is that,
We put up,
am I getting that right?
sure.
You want me to shut this down, Chris? I wasn't sure if you wanted to flip through this or not.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna do the same thing. I was basically opening it. You can go to the page with the $239 million page. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
239.
Oh, sorry. Well,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah,
Your one is in front of us,
yeah, I know my
sorry.
head's. So for the. You're talking about the athletic space, right? So there's several items in there. There's money up at the top. For upgraded sites for after school use, some of that is athletic space. The $2.7 million. There's things that have to happen, like tennis courts, some work needs to happen at the tennis courts in the next 8 years. There's we have work, like right now, we just laser level baseball and softball fields. That was $30,000 just infield mix. So there's bleachers, things that'll have to happen that are just upkeep. And then when we get to the high school, there's the weight room change, which what that would happen is building a new weight room with a secure entrance. And it actually cleans up the entrance to the gym, because the entrance to the gym is kind of odd. You walk into the building and then you're like, I know the gym's like, it's gotta be right there, but it's just odd. It made sense when it was designed, but as you see over time, we need to clean that up. And building a new weight room, what it actually helps us do on top of having a weight room that fits all the kids that we run through there, is the existing weight room they can turn into space that we can use, because right now we cram. We put youth wrestling in either the Mill Creek cafeteria, the dungeon, or the weight room, multi-purpose room. Right, not weird, yoga, wrestling, batting cage room. We have so many things going on. So it gives us another space. And then down here, the committee recommended 60,000 square feet of indoor athletic space. It's just a placeholder on the square footage. So when design happens, there'll have to be a lot of committee work to figure out what that is and what needs we're trying to meet, where the best locations are. But it does give, right now it's, as you go in this phase and when you look at, Craig, can you flip to the series? It's one of the second to last slide in. So when you look at the way the bond, a $240 million bond would have to work. Yeah, according to our bond advisors, it would be four series. The first one would be 60 million, the next one 75 million, a 90 million, and then a 15 million. So I have to put the packages together for the phase. So if Creekside is gonna be renovated to include a two-story new middle school with an auditorium, we're gonna probably have to do the Wiley addition first. So we have additional space to work with. Not do all the Wiley renovation yet, so we keep as many classrooms. And then do all of the shuffling while that is built. After we build more space, then we have functionality, or we have options, so that's why working through the staging, it'll be pretty important. That makes sense.
Yeah, so the 60,000 is
60 million.
undetermined space at this point.
Oh, yeah,
These-
60,000
these are
square feet.
Yeah, these are concept drawings, they could change, but we're talking on, and you think 60,000 square feet is sufficient for the needs of the district in the next 15 years?
Yeah, 60,000 square feet is basically like a full pitch track, right? Is that about what 60,000 square feet is?
It's not, it's like a three-quarter.
Three-quarter pitch. So
It's about
So it's about 80 yards of long, plus a shortened track around, it'd be plenty of space, and we could work within it, it was a placeholder space wise. Whether that's the right space, we also looked at extra gyms and things like that, so there's options. The cost is the cost. Depending how fancy it gets.
And then the timing of the construction, like, is it gonna interrupt? I'm sure it's gonna have some interruption, but how interrupt, how much interruption will this create?
There'd be some phasing involved and some thought process. It's is when you think about it, in order to do that kind of work. There's a design phase, and then looking at like a Wiley addition. Probably will require the playground first. Or if it goes off the side, you can do both at the same time. And then you look at, you have to build the space over there for the K6 kids to fit, actually K8, let's go through that kind of, process. As far as additional athletic space, we can start that outside the high school science rooms. Probably get some summer work, but then some work kind of phase through. I mean, you guys do that for a living.
There will be a lot, it'll be more that we're moving people to different rooms than they used to, rather than really heavy construction in an occupied area, but it might mean that some kids come here, or we build the addition at Wiley and keep a couple extra classrooms there. So that's really more the disruption, is moving people within the district, in order to allow opening those spaces for the district.
Yeah, so like, the deck, Anchor and Beacon has capacity for another 180 to 200 kids. So that's without even really trying.
You expand the space that's there, right? They've had people look at rooms that could be rooms, they'd be like, oh, I could use it, go ahead, use it for that, I could use it for this, use it for that. So now if we need to take it back to classroom, as Chris just mentioned, there's lots of opportunity to take some classrooms back while construction is going on with students around.
So
To stage.
yeah, conceptually, we could. K2 could stay K3 for a year while we build, after the Wiley addition was built. Wiley maybe could house 4, 5, 6, while 7th and 8th stayed at Mill Creek. We built Beacon in a year, we're building a senior center in like 8 months. And they can do better, I got faith.
They were there on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, you've been one up by the senior center now. Beacon was a year. Man, that is fast. So the phasing, not real concerned about it. Well, I mean, there'd be lots of committees the board will have to kind of work through when it gets to that phase. You did have questions though about sustainability.
Yeah.
So I'm kicking it to you guys on this one. I know we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah, one of the easy things is when we're looking at facilities, analysis. A lot of the, my perspective of the district is energy usage. And so we're certainly looking at what this pricing reflects is better control systems, more efficient equipment, higher efficiency boilers, magnetic bearing chillers. That will run, use less energy throughout the lifetime of the building, even if they have slightly higher upfront costs. So we're looking at those decisions and trying to make sure that that was at the forefront of all the mechanical and electrical decisions. You also see a lot of changing the existing, the remaining lighting to LED, both site lighting inside buildings. And then, energy codes have got significantly stricter on all of our buildings, any additions, any large renovations. So more insulation. We're frankly not at the point of selecting materials where we look more at recycled content, different types of flooring. Certainly we understand that's a goal, and we would always keep that in mind, but that is something that we're quite a ways away from before we start looking at those individual products. But really, the energy savings for the district as a whole is the kind of major focus we have on sustainability during this process.
We've also looked at kitchens, how we can do with waste and some of that stuff too, redoing some of the kitchen spaces as well in the buildings, to kind of help with that sort of safety stuff.
So you probably don't want to say this, but just whatever you can do in terms of managing wastewater runoff, recycling water or holding water or keeping it from, dumping it in Mill Creek. Those are all good. And then also planting, native species, et cetera. So that would be really helpful.
In the last bond, we mitigated a wetland and actually had native species moved with them. And then under field, it's the far left one over here, what, a 250,000 gallon tank? To keep the water running out. We did the outfalls.
Much like the one that you did at the bus loop, forget that bus loop, they have tremendous underground storage on the backside of that bus loop. And so, consistently, all their civil engineering practice has been to, manage for well in excess of 100-year flood. In fact, that bus loop is a 200-year flood.
We're getting them every 20 years now. So for 10.
Since the foresight involved in that decision was pretty good.
And then, okay, Daniel, you had a question.
Before that question, though, how do you guys manage inflationary costs? Because they're crazy. I mean, I'm just kind of curious because they're crazy. 1 year is 1.5, next year 10%, and building materials just past couple of years I've been on board. It's you can make your head spin.
So we had, 2020 and 2021, when building costs went up about 22%. Versus the historic average of 2 to 4%. The last couple of years have gone back down. We're at around the 5% range. So projected out, I think 5% for the next few years, and then down to 4 or 3.5, 3.5 going forward from that. And when you look at the facility study, it's the 1 to 5 years, it's 6 to 10 as the big groups, but then we broke that out a little more and selected projects, either at the 3-year midway mark or a little further down the line to include those costs. So all the costs that you see do have that inflation as well as all the soft costs.
About 5% or something.
Yeah.
Plus contingencies, I assume.
Yeah, the soft costs are all included. So if you look at any of those numbers, it's like, I don't know, say 30% or something is on there.
Right. No, thank you. I just want to make sure. State of mind. So on the security, as I'm looking through it here again, I can see it again. Like new single point of entry for D, that's going to have security upgrades, obviously. The upgrade, we can make it anchor administrative officer. I think that will probably have to tie in. I can pick them out here. But again, since it's one of the top 3 priorities, in the high school, obviously new entries can be more secure. 7th, 8th middle school. Thing, right? Should be more secure. So just want to make sure that we can spell it out to the community in a little bit of detail. I know it's too early now, and by next year, I'll apply new security information will come on, but that is I'd like to be able to see that clearly, even if it's like a sub bullet to the side, so people don't have to guess,
I think a lot of that infrastructure stuff, right, is the new doors that are going, the new windows are going in to help, so all that stuff, and you're right, it's in there. Like, it's been thought of, it's in there, but it's not.
But we should have
Pointed out, yeah, we need to
I
point
think
it out.
it is secure, and I think it does say secure in almost every single place where you guys are doing it.
Show
So,
me.
if you look at
Maybe I missed it.
new single point of entry at the D. I know that that's gonna,
No.
a new secure entrance. Then you've got, construct new secure entrance at high school. And then you've got the new 7th and 8th building. I mean, like, all of those things that you guys are doing, if you look at it, you go, oh, yeah, that's gonna be, it flows from the next, right?
Yeah.
All the things that you guys
I
are
agree,
doing.
that's why I brought it up on
Recommending
here,
it.
but you shouldn't have, only says secure. I'm just saying, we shouldn't have to make the community,
Make the jump.
yeah, don't have them make a mistake, because
In,
there's also access control measures. You know, all kind of things that people are wanting, do they see it? Some of it's not doable, some of it's just a waste of money, I get it. But I don't want people to
Well, and I,
give them a stepping stool, so they don't have to, you know.
It really needs to have its own narrative, because it's not a line item like other things.
Well, and I think, Craig, we've talked about this before, when we're in that, we know it says it, but it does help to say, to really point out, yes, this is what we mean when we say a new single point of entry at the deck is, it will be secured, when, you know, a new secure plan.
there's
secure
also
plan.
secure items like the doors, like
Right.
we've changed the locks and the way the doors are at the high school. So that it's, yeah, they're way more secure, there's new mechanisms that they've designed.
Right, the windows that anchor that don't open, right?
Yeah.
The windows that are in the buildings, right, fix those. That way our staff feels that's a security for them, right? Because
Right.
they can't get out of the window. So, but the spelling it out is, yeah, that's a good suggestion.
well, and I guess I just also, not as a counterpoint, but also, I guess I just want to clarify, my understanding is we have been doing this with bond money over the years. So I would like to make sure that it is very clear that these are continued upgrades and that if people don't see a particular thing they think they're looking for in the school their kid is in, it's because it's already been done. So I just want to make sure that narrative is. I mean, this has been, since my kids were little, they've been changing entries. So I want to be clear that Dexter has been doing it and we are continuing. So,
They should be tied to the risk assessment that was done in all the recommendations. There were proposals there, a lot of them have been. But there's still more to go, so a lot of them must. All I'm saying is that I want to make sure that we can communicate and we don't have to answer a lot of questions, letting people understand.
Right?
I had a question on the financial tolerance slide. The statement was made that the dollar amount was not relevant. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Because I think that's a really important takeaway that kind of flew by.
It was that big table with the 300 million. So originally, when the committee started working, they
It's kind of the beginning, right
outlined,
under
yeah,
exploration.
it's up here further.
Sorry, I wish that'd be helpful for us to be.
Yeah, you start from there real quick. They outlined, based on priorities, what they would, and some of those multiple designs. So right at,
Not that
almost there, keep going. Come with all the building designs. Yep, so those priorities,
Exploration.
and then keep going.
Keep going, all right.
Two more.
Yeah.
All right.
So they worked through some concepts that ranged, and one of the designs was, can we make sense, enhance the campus? So, and the concept was how could we really take advantage of the campus, and they played around with a learning hub where K6 was all here, actually it was K8 all here, renovations, to utilize Creekside differently. And then they had creating this campus where there was something happened with this building, it became another building up here. A new one, and then some changes at Creekside. And then there was the improvement place, which was just renovate the buildings. And if you go to the next, it's like the next slide or the slide after, oh, then all that stuff.
I don't know if
There
there's.
it is, go back one.
Yeah.
That one. And then they came up and the folks at Granger costed it out. And it was like 300 million. It got applied, but it was a lot. So then we talked to the bond folks, and as they worked through, they're like, okay, is it the number or, and the feedback was, if it's a zero increase in bills. Then the number wasn't as big, because once you get to like 300, okay, should we be at 250, should we be at 200, should we be at 150? It's like, what can you do for those amounts? So there was like a tolerance, if you get it down to 100, 150, 200 versus 300, there's 400, 600.
I think we want to be careful because I think it came across tonight that, well, we had to figure out how much money we had to spend. And I don't think that's the concept you want to present.
That wasn't what happened. That was
Well,
the thing.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, for the board tonight, it's okay, but I think we need to be careful out in the public, as one of the comments and thoughts I had. First of all, I think that when you get to the three figures, 4 million, people don't really evaluate it in terms of, I'm okay with this many million and not that. But I think certainly the concept of not increasing millage is critical. But I think someplace are also, needs to be communicated, here are things we consider that we're not doing. So that instead of looking like, how do we build it up to 200? That we looked at all of this and this is what we felt we could afford out of all the things we thought we had.
Yeah.
But you want to be very careful how it comes out to the public.
That's exactly the
I
process.
think we can.
Well,
consider it.
again, that did not come across to me in the presentation tonight. I have a question.
Wait,
Well, I don't know, if that's, I honestly, I don't know if it's been really clarified. I think you kind of got it. I think you.
So what they did is the committee gave thoughts on it. And based on all these numbers, what was the tolerance by individual? And you can see there's like. There were some thought the community would vote for 300 million, wouldn't talk about money, talk about the amount or the tax increase. 150 million, and they went through, and then we started talking with bond council and going, okay. What is realistic? And based on the amount of money or amount of mills staying at the 8.5, they came up with that 220, 240 range. So that's when we started to cut down. Because the original plans were at 320. I think it was 320 and it was
Over 320.
there was one was only like 298.
That was fair.
Yeah, those three original plans were all 300 plus roughly. And then we then got the bond feedback that said
I have a question.
we can do something around 220, 240 and not increase the millage, and that message changed clearly. That was suddenly, okay, now we're talking.
The next to the last slide says 8.5 mils first year. I guess I'm not sure what it says first year, it should be periods. It's got to go up after the first year, I'll say that.
Yeah, over here. So after the first 6 or 7 years.
First year millage increase 0. It should be more than the first year. If I see that, it says, oh, that's just going in.
It does say that on the slide. It stays level and then it goes down.
I understand, but that slide says first year increase 0, but it doesn't say the increases after that. And I think that it's clearly set for not increase afterwards, and that needs to be clearly stated.
It's at the very bottom of the green box on the second to last slide. And I understand what Dick is saying, and I do agree that we will get questions, so that could be clarified.
You don't even want the question to come up.
Yeah, right.
On a previous slide, I think you just got to cross out.
Oh, you mean the estimated?
It says,
The
Yeah.
language on the
the
left.
next thing there, it says first year millage
Yeah.
increase 0, but it should be,
Just take
it
that
should
out.
be
Just take it out.
total, not first year.
This is exactly from the bond, our bond folks.
Ah.
When they
When we-
calculated, this is their exact spreadsheet they sent us, so they'll have different formats we have to share publicly. But this is the exact, that's like a.
That begs a negative reaction.
First year, just say we'll increase 0.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to explain the 7.5 and the decreasing rates and blah, blah, blah.
It's our presentation. We
Right.
should control where we want it.
And this is really the presentation from here forward, isn't it? This is really the presentation for now on, right?
Well, when it gets into campaign phase, it changes dramatically. You're getting everything in the kitchen sink. But you're, the issue is that we also have to educate people about what they're gonna see on the ballot. Because the ballot will say things like first year, whatever, so we have to be able to say the projection is that it goes down after, but it's. It isn't something that voters really pay attention to, unfortunately. It's, you know, it's educating them about what the true situation can be. And they won't be seeing charts like that because those are very difficult for, you know, just average. You know, I have to really dive into it to understand all of the series and everything. So we'll simplify.
One paragraph, they see most to see, about how many meetings you have, the town hall.
Yeah.
You'll be there, you know, probably hear you, the same 30 people show up to all the meetings that are interested in most of them. But I agree with kind of what they were saying there, about that. The same thing on that, the key outcome, I would just scratch out from verbiage, dollar amount of time. Right, from your permanent verbiage, because dollar amount is relevant, because, you know, I get it, I would just scratch that out for
Well, so back to Melanie's
the
question.
village
the real-
increase or decrease.
The real point is that the dollar amount will be guided by the calculation, plain and simple, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And in the end, this group has to decide on what's included. This was the bond steering committee's recommendation. It's the first time seeing the full package. There are things you really should consider. The way there was no money carved out for the new senior center. That it'll be an 8-year-old building when this bond's done, there'll be some cost needed. Something will be needed to be done. Moving Mill Creek. Once all the phasing's over, moving the 5th and 6th graders to Mill Creek. There in the Mill Creek design, there was a small little addition for like a strength conditioning space, but that wouldn't be needed for 5th and 6th grade, but there's gonna be other internal. Like maybe there was a thought of some collaboration space, there might be some money moves that need to happen, little ones. Or just a line item for renovations to adapt. So we're gonna have to do some things, and for you, this is a bond steering committee recommendation for the board. The timelines, we have options to go for a bond in May, August. November is tricky. Don't do it. No, and the reason why we can't, if we go in May or August, we can start collecting and selling bonds as of and bring in funds in December of 25. If you go in November, you're waiting another year. So in order to meet a May deadline, the board, we're gonna have to, as a district, have a preliminary meeting with Treasury, which we do have tentatively scheduled with them in December 10th, but the board will have to approve a resolution to submit an application for preliminary qualification with the Department of Treasury. And you have to do that by December 16th.
This is
And then-
not cast in iron either, I don't believe.
There's room to move
Besides
this around,
that,
yeah. It's really the dollar amount and the bills.
You can structure the bond repayments different,
Yes,
so there is room for flexibility there.
This is
Yep.
guiding, right?
Yeah.
Right?
It's one possibility
Right.
that works.
so we're gonna have to list
You've
what,
done this so many times, David, that's why I'm asking.
And it
you.
meets, the state requires it to be somewhat conservative in your estimate on return on investments. And, just in general, they're not gonna let you work to the maximum that you think you can do. They're gonna make sure there's some reasonable cushion.
and what'll have to happen for the board level is there would have to be an action on by December 16th. A resolution to submit an application to Treasury, and then we'll hear back from Treasury mid-January. And then the board would have to vote probably January 27th-ish. By then to put a ballot proposal on the ballot in May. And with early voting and absentee ballots, completely different cycle now.
So there are
that
any
would
other
mean-
elections in May or?
We don't know yet, it's still too early.
It's, in some respects, it's nice if you can share the cost with somebody instead of like you're paying just for yourself.
Yeah.
On
There'll be some,
on the other hand, if it's just for us, like people show up for.
but that ballot, like this November ballot,
Well, no, you don't
I
want
mean, people don't even. They don't,
think
it's
it's
so much
else
to
next
figure
year.
out, there'll be something in May, then we have a couple items, I'm sure. So then, by February 11th, the district would have to submit to the county, the election coordinator. Both here and in Livingston, I think we do it in Livingston. In order to make sure we're on time for May sixth. The advantage of a May sixth is we're in school, it's easy to get information and answer questions while we're in school. August is possible, but it's harder to. People are shut down.
Harder,
It's just
the
hard to
whole
get.
campaign over the summer.
Well, and it's hard to answer questions. It's disjointed. It's way easier during the school year when we already have events and we have normal process.
Just to clarify, what, all these approvals and stuff to meet timelines are a very general description. One of the things you do is you word this, because over the period of time, a lot of things change, priorities change, things come up you haven't thought of. And so you want the language to be very broad, so that as things come up, you can still do anything that's gonna make sense. And there's a lot of adjustments during the course, so this is a very nice starting point for what might actually happen if it gets approved. But we've seen here, things shifted in time, and shift in priorities, and things drop off, other things come up. So you can't be surprised if that happens.
This does have some
We
clear,
might use some ballot language.
we'd have to. The ballot language will represent. What's in a preliminary application, which is all of the, looking at the items presented today. Should probably schedule another meeting to talk through. Along with some wording about, if we needed to get an easement or land acquisition, I mean, some costs like that. But a total package, so TMP can write a bond application that has detail for treasury. You can't just say, give us 240 million, the voters, we're gonna figure it out. But it'll have to include renovations by site and things like that. So what we would do is, we would need that detail. And then the actual ballot language is gonna include the items that are in the bond application that's approved, and it'll have some verbiage that represents the types of things that the funds will pay for. And that's gonna have to be approved in January by the board.
So we should see something in December.
We can get draft language of it once we get the bond application drafted. Our attorneys write it pretty quick, and then it'll be fine. But the attorneys write exactly what it is based on the bond application. So the important part for this board is to figure out what's gonna go in the bond application. We've had a community committee that's worked through and really trunched through all the details. So then it's really okay. Thinking through, is that a good plan? Show some long-term vision. Is it missing anything? And I would say we really need to put some money for senior center. Because there's gonna be something we need to do.
So at this point, we have a meeting scheduled for the 16th of December and January 20th. No, January 22nd. November 21st also. Yeah, and November 18th. 18th. Yeah, 18th. It's okay. So
Really, you really
more
want us
things
to
to
be
think about here, please.
There was we have the group is set up, immediate needs, 1 to 5, 6 to 10. And beyond, I assume there's nothing in here that was covered in the 10 beyond.
Nothing past 8. We actually covered that.
Well, So you're partway into the 6 to 10.
Yes.
When I looked at just a quick glance at the numbers, it looked like the 240 million took you through immediate 1 to 5. When I did my quick math in my head. So I'm not sure if there's any beyond 5 that's covered.
Yeah, there's some movement because Creekside renovations were like 31 million. In the 8-year span, I think it was, and then by tearing down part of it and then building a new two-story, that was 44 million. So it took 31 million off, added 13 million on. It has that interplay, there's a bunch of those.
I don't really care. I just want to understand really how much, how the different groups and stuff and so forth. I haven't seen it for this.
So I just want to chime in with a few comments, like on the whole, because I was not involved in the committee. This was the first time I got to see all of it, and I've heard snippets. But there's a lot of things I'm really excited about, and there's a lot of things I think the community is going to love. For one thing, for me, I've never thought about this before, but flipping Mill Creek and Creekside and having 5, 6 over there and 7, 8 over there makes so much sense to me. I mean, it's like a no-brainer once I heard it. So like that is just something I love. And I think there are pieces of this. I love the idea of having an auditorium at the middle school. I think that would greatly enhance. I mean, we have such a performance culture here in Dexter, and having a place for the middle schoolers to perform, having another theater for our community. Looking at athletics, I mean, the feedback we get through email is generally about athletic spaces. So I think I love the process. I love how many stakeholders were included in coming up with the plan. I loved hearing about the consensus that was come to. And I really just want to compliment everyone involved in this, because I think this is such a strong recommendation that it makes it so easy for the board to like really just kind of highlight what's been done and what the community is asking for, because this is literally what the community is asking for. So I don't want to get lost in the weeds without saying, like, I'm just so impressed at everything that came to us tonight.
It's amazing, they worked out the priorities in the first 6 matched individual group, but if you go through the next group, in groups of 2, they switch, so it's still almost essentially the same thing all the way through the 13 priorities. So that's pretty strong consensus.
Yeah, and the committee put a ton of work, and Gail led an incredible process, along with the TNP and Granger team. Really a great process.
It was great.
Like, the focus on campaigning is people need to really know how thorough the process was, how broad it was, and it's no increase, and conceptually, what are the things you're trying to accomplish and how this does it.
There were other people on this committee, something like that?
No, it was,
More like 30, yeah, between 30 and 40, I would say, that it started. I think it got down to the main group at the end, it was a little over 30.
yeah, it was a full room. This room was completely set up different.
So is there anything the board needs to like,
Right.
is there a consensus we need to come to tonight for our next step?
Are there things, as you think through process-wise, we probably should have a discussion at the next board meeting and really go through that detail and see if there's any things we need, like small tweaks or things,
Doing,
because we need to get to a final number. And it might be just, and we can handle, like, if, say the board wanted to put, I don't know, $1 million for some Creekside, or sorry, Mill Creek renovations. We could probably figure out how to shuffle that through, and if they want to put, say, $500,000 for a senior center as a placeholder for what might be needed, then the 240 is not a hard number, but it might be that you set that and we look at all the rest of the numbers and go, okay, well, we take the weight room out, then it's really this much money. And we can get that all sorted out by December 10th. Or by like December, I know, by like November 19th, how's that?
I would say the more critical thing is if there's anything really missing, not likely. That's what you're really.
I would say those are the only 2 things that are really missing. We really need to set money aside for the senior center. Because we're on pace to have that building done sooner than later.
That's in the money, but it's very critical in terms of the building.
Yeah, because it needs to be in the bond app, right? We have money for the senior center.
But I assume that all the geniuses can figure out how to make sure we can do anything that's ever.
But we also want to tell voters that we set money aside for all these purposes. And that is one glaring, if we have money for the wellness center renovations that are updates that it'll need,
it's
are in that $103 million line for critical upgrades. The senior center, though, the building, it's brand new, so we couldn't do an analysis of what it might be, because it's not gonna fill it.
Right.
But it will, and in 8 years, there'll be something. And it maybe won't be $500,000, but there'll be
They
some,
have $10.
yeah, but I would budget it,
okay.
that it was something, and we were talking 240 million, a $500,000 fraction of a percent. I just made up a number, I
Yeah.
use one that's easy to work with.
So it sounds like people are supportive of doing whatever next step we need to be doing at the next meeting.
All right, we'll get that going. So the next meeting, we'll have a discussion with the details, and then TMP and Granger can work on that.
If there are any questions that any individual board member has, I'm available. You can give me a call if you have to get to it.
That's perfect.
I have last 5 bonds, 4 bonds that might have They will go away soon, so it should be better.
That's what I've heard somebody that we should be more or less fast track towards the May thing. But I think by the next meeting, if we can have a pretty good timeline on who's gonna take to get there.
Yeah, I mean, just around the community, people know that there's a need and I think they're chomping at the bit to some degree to improve the spaces. They're not gonna know that first line item of all the things that need to be fixed, but the other stuff, everybody knows about that. Everybody, yeah, the bells and whistles, right? Not the nuts and bolts.
Well, the kind of bells was a different form, like you go talk to drama. Well, folks, they're gonna care about the CPA, you got their vote, right? You know, then you go talk to the athletic foundation. Oh, maybe there's a scoreboard in there, fine, you know, oh, yeah, let's do that, you got their vote, you know. They can see, well, they can see it, right?
Yeah, there is score, that was good, the 200, whatever,
Yeah, it's,
or 2.4 million, that's some of that score.
yeah, yeah. I'm just saying that when you go out to try to explain to people, some people aren't gonna care about certain things, but fortunately, athletics is what everyone goes out to see. And then the drama club and then the music, that's what parents go to.
Well, you wanna be like the battery commercial. You had this, yes, it's in there. Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah, Hope.
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question for the minute. So the consensus is to go for May.
Well, we can't make a decision, discussion.
No,
We are
So we're gonna-
discussing,
I mean, for the procedure.
we are discussing that we would like more information,
About,
assuming a May.
And bring a
What does
timeline.
that look
Yeah.
like?
yeah,
Timeline would be-
okay.
And then, and just a clarifying question, when you say we need to look at more detail, is there a specific thing that we should be looking at? in order
No,
to-
I would look at the big chart
Okay,
and just see if there's something that, yeah,
okay,
or that you wanna drill down on.
okay.
The flash drive has every detail you ever dream of.
Okay.
It's gonna be overwhelming. I mean, like the facilities analysis was 470 pages, something like that.
Yeah, if on the flash drive.
Yeah.
It's in
And
there.
I just wanna point out, those are all the preliminary, just to be clear, they're preliminary numbers.
Yeah.
So there's some things in there, there's like one item for a building automation system, that building's not big enough to spend as much on a building automation system as what you do, so we moved some things around, but that was the original numbers. And that was like, so you have every file,
This is a
yeah,
working
you have any file anybody's ever looked at,
So,
but the final file is out.
Perfect.
so the question is, I think as Dick's pointing out, is anything missing? Like with budgeting, just little things can be such a pain, like somebody wants, an example, I just recently read, you know, they built a huge CPA, but they didn't have working music stands. And they just wanted their music to not fall off the stand, and then they give you stands, and it was such a small amount, that, so I just wanna make sure we're not missing any things like that.
Recognize the final plan on this is going to spend down 10 to 5.
Yep.
Yeah, but we do want everybody to feel like they've been heard, or at least, you know, to have that input, so if there's, you know, I don't know, we ever talked to us, they love.
You're gonna.
I think the typical user groups are gonna be pretty pleased with the content of the bond. All, they have been addressed in the content of this document.
This is far and away the most thorough work that's been done ahead of bond of anything I think I've seen.
You think?
Well, that's impressive. I mean, with all the years that you've done that, both of you, that's impressive.
Oh, Gail, TMP and Granger have done, and the committee, I mean, it's incredible.
I mean, it makes it a little bit easier for us. to be able
So
to-
easy.
Yeah, a lot easier.
The one thing that makes it somewhat interesting is no new buildings in here.
And that was actually something they considered, was, do we want to build the new middle school out of the?
Basically, we're upgrading what we
I
have.
said, no, after reflection, they said, no, that's not in the best interest.
So
Right.
we're not out doing Taj Mahal, we're not doing something new. We're trying to make the best of the facilities we have upgrading.
And also
And that's
being
different.
really conscious of, there's some buildings we've added on so many times, it's cheaper to tear that part of that down. and build
Maybe major renovation, not a new building.
Exactly.
Well, and I think also the historic value and the community feel of the campus and the buildings and, you know, how people feel about it.
In fact, we're willing to upgrade what we have instead of go out and try to do some fancy new thing, I think is a real plus. in terms of concept of community.
So if we do include certain, monies for. I just want to make sure that the parties that are going to be receiving the funds are on board.
We had representation from a lot of the groups, but we'll have to be, I mean, there's money specifically set aside for band, orchestra, choir, CPA, building a new theater,
Yeah, that's neat stuff.
CTE, robotics. I mean, we have all of these groups. We've thought through every group on what we need. We're shuffling like robotics right now. We got water all over the floor down the hall. We really gotta get them touched.
Just so the board understand. Not every single thing that we're talking about now and it's listed in this is gonna happen. And some things that are not specifically listed here are gonna happen. If you don't let it show you, that's part of getting smarter over the course of time.
There will be other ideas. These are concepts that make sense and address educational programming. That's what this exercise gets you. The facility analysis, that's another bag altogether. That's an incredibly detailed study that both Fraser and TOP spent months and months and months preparing before any of the bond steering committee was brought together. So the meat is definitely on the bone. They know the detail of every single space in the district. Literally every single room was inspected. So, there's been quite a bit of effort put into the facility analysis to make sure they understood the condition of the existing building before they started talking about how do we go forward and meet the programming needs. And so it's a very impressive effort.
We've got good facilities that we're gonna improve. And I think we're being good stewards of what we have and of the resources that are available to keep them great.
Great, all right, thank you. So this is our second period of public participation. Is there anyone who'd like to make a comment to the board? Okay, and now it is time for board comments. Does anyone have anything to add?
I will just add that, Athletic Booster Club of Dexter is doing a Rising Tides raffle right now. They're gonna limit how many tickets they're selling, and the first prize is 3,000, second is 1,500, third is 500. The cost of the ticket is $100 a piece, but the odds are very high of winning because it's better than the Powerball. So if you are interested in buying a ticket, come and see an ABCD board member. Myself.
And we'll share that, two things. One, Mara and I were present for the delegate assembly. Was it 2 weeks ago now? I didn't.
Yeah.
So on Thursday, and we spent, I think, it was about an hour and a half, no, it was 2 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
Generally, they're about an hour. And one item was the discussion of healthy nutrition versus healthful nutrition, which went on for a good 40 minutes. And it was very interesting. And then there were some really good speakers. It's a very good conference. If any of you are able to attend in the future, just excellent motivational speakers, really good sessions, breakout sessions, and then a couple of continuing ed classes that I attended over the 3 days that I was there. And then I would like to remind board members that we do have a new superintendent evaluation process this year. We are required to take training in order to complete the Chris's evaluation this year. The next two
There are virtual, that are.
that are virtual are November 6th, so Wednesday.
Only a few left.
Yeah,
New one.
and December 3rd. So if you are interested in, we need at least one more board member. I know that Mara and Louise and I have gone through this training.
I'm signed up.
Oh,
It's required, it's mandatory.
you done it already?
Yeah, it's mandatory, right?
Yeah.
It's not optional.
Well,
I did it virtually.
great. So we have a forum, so we're good.
And I'm signed up
glad
now.
you're signed up. So that's coming up. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for the district for supporting board members in our continuing ed.
Thank you guys. Everybody pick up off really thanks. Wow, that's a lot. Late nights, I kind of dropped into one, I walked through, walks with y'all, and I left after a lot, that's my speech, but you guys stayed here writing out more work. There's all the details, I thought was good, just appreciate that. Relevant, one. No 3-peat this year, which we're lucky to. First time they ever lost to Chelsea, never, state final, but we're back again. There's a lot of things good, everything's good this morning. Here, second place in the States is a disappointment, it's not really a bad thing. Except for the ladies that, but, yeah, again, thank you for all, everybody here that's been, if you learning here, you see them, please all thank you from all of us.
And a special thanks to Craig. He's done more tours, more meetings.
Thursday, right? Washington Thursday? We're Thursday.
Just to add on to that, I got the pleasure of being on the bond steering committee, and it was really exciting to watch the action and how well you adapted and listened to our community and our thoughts and concerns. And I'm glad that you noticed the switch from the 5th and 6th, because when it was presented, we all just sort of looked at it like stunned and went, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's one of those no-brainers, like, how do we not think of that? So it was a pleasure to be on that and to see everything in action. MASB legislative was fun. As always, love to watch Robert's rules in action. Point of order, paddles, we need to get those for sure.
They're ping pong paddles, we hold them up, point of order.
Point of order, and it was great, yeah. And then just to expand on the classes, the kids coming to the senior center, I have had the pleasure, I work at the wellness center, and so I have had the pleasure of seeing the Dexter High School class that we added in, or it was already on the curriculum, and I've gotten to see that in action at the wellness center, and that has been going really well. And the interaction between the instructors and the kids on the floors and the members who are there, there've been some members who have stepped up and showed some pickleball, and so that's been really great. And then it was funny because at one particular day, the high schoolers had just left, and then this gaggle of kids from Wiley come in, and they're gonna go and read and do things with the seniors, so that was really exciting, and it was very much a multi-generational wellness center at that moment, so it's been very awesome to see. And then last but not least, the Education Foundation of Dexter, speaking of wins over Chelsea, we won. And everybody wins because the kids get the money through the grants and everything, but we beat Chelsea significantly, like by $5,000, right? Yeah, so it was, yes, so that was pretty awesome. And then EFD is going to start awarding that money towards the grants. The grant fund has finished, so that is the next meeting for the EFD, and so that is where we see the money go put to work. So that is very exciting.
That's great. All right. Yeah, so we have information items. We have SEA minutes from October in our packet. We do not have a closed session, and so we can adjourn. Thank you, everybody.